So while today's trending topic is Thanos Mickey taking over 20th Century Fox, there was something else that Disney has been up to as well, and it's been reported by several other gaming sites. I think it originally came from PC Games In, so that's what I will link below in the description section. And as a former LucasArts games fan, I'm potentially excited about this. Disney is reviving Lucasfilm Games, not LucasArts. Well, technically, originally it was called Lucasfilm Games. Then they changed the name to LucasArts. It's basically one and the same thing. Sadly, well, I'll let him explain it for you. After the acquisition of Lucasfilms by Disney in 2012, one of their first acts was to close the company's video game development division, the legendary LucasArts. While Electronic Arts has held the Star Wars license for video games since this time, the fact that publisher has only released 2 titles over the 6 years has led many to believe that Disney are unhappy with EA's handling of the license. That argument got a lot stronger today, as it seems like Disney are looking to revive Lucasfilm Games, the forerunner to LucasArts. In the last few days, Disney has posted job descriptions with numerous roles, all specifically to work at Lucasfilm Games. This included producers, marketing coordinators, art directors, and other major roles. It even looks like there's going to be a separate branch for Asian territories. According to the postings, Lucasfilm Games will be working on interactive products based on Star Wars and other Lucasfilm IPs, all digital platforms. These include PC, Mac, current-gen consoles, mobile phones, as well as AR, VR devices. They made a joke about a Willow VR. Yes, because everybody wants a new Willow movie, right? Look, as much as I like Val Kilmer and Warwick Davis, it was a cult movie. And, if you ever get a chance to watch it, it was directed by Ron Howard, by the way. And there's worse movies out there, but there's reasons why Willow never got a sequel or anything else other than a standalone movie. Continuing, while the listing for producer role only specifies that the studio will be working on interactive products, the job description for brand art coordinator requires that the experience and knowledge of the best practices in the game industry. In fact, it also notes that the applicants should ideally have a passion for video games. They will also need to maintain an up-to-date knowledge of the gaming and digital industry. So you can check out the full selection of Lucasfilm game job postings at the Disney Careers website. While none of this indicates that Disney are going to pull the Star Wars license from EA, it's looking likely that Disney are going to start developing their own video games internally, at least for Star Wars, Indiana Jones, or other Lucasfilm properties. Fingers crossed for long overdue Loom sequel. LucasArts halted all internal development around 2013, although the name itself was kept as a license, which is possibly why the new studio is going under the name Lucasfilm Games, which LucasArts was known as from 1982 to 1990. So first it was Lucasfilm Games, and then they changed the name back in 1990 to LucasArts. That's where I became a fan of LucasArts games. The Secret of Monkey Island was one of the last games to be released under the old name. In the meantime, EA are still releasing Star Wars games, at least they're not canceling them. I'm very excited for, Jedi Fallen Order, which is being worked on by Respawn, coming out hopefully this fall. We're going to learn more about it, I think, at Star Wars Celebration in less than a month from now. But, I loved me some old school LucasArts games. And not just the Star Wars games. They made lots of different games. Now, LucasArts was predominantly a publisher. They were also a licensor. And I think there was some in-house development as well, but there was definitely a lot of developers that worked with LucasArts in the 90s as well as the early 2000s leading up to Star Wars 1313, which sadly was one of the victims of Mickey Thanos' takeover of Lucasfilms, sadly. So yeah, a lot of games, including KOTOR, Secret of Monkey Island, Maniac Mansion, Day of the Tentacle, as well as Full Throttle. Full Throttle was alright. Sam & Max Hit the Road was hilarious. I loved Sam & Max. Indiana Jones and the Fate of Atlantis, that was a fun game back in 1992. Year before that, you had Monkey Island 2, then The Dig, which was an interesting game. And, my personal favorite of the entire Star Wars franchise, actually my 2 favorites, I would say I have a list of favorites, but TIE Fighter, the TIE Fighter franchise, well, it started off as X-Wing. There was X-Wing, then there was TIE Fighter, then there was X-Wing versus TIE Fighter. And I would very much like for Disney to resurrect the X-Wing versus TIE Fighter franchise. Dark Forces, by the way, I just finished streaming Jedi Academy, which is the 4th installment of the Dark Forces Jedi Knight franchise. And that was a lot of fun. It's currently backwards compatible on Xbox 360 as well as Xbox One. I streamed it on the Xbox One X. And I'm also planning on streaming Republic Commando sometime this year later on. And I'm definitely going to be streaming Jedi Fallen Order. So yes, huge Star Wars fan. And a lot of people were making Loom jokes as well. I don't know if we're ever going to see a sequel to Loom, to be honest. But there were a lot of Monkey Island games that came out over the years, as well as Indiana Jones games. And of course, Star Wars Rogue Squadron back in '98. That was a very fun game. And Star Wars Jedi Knight Dark Forces 2. That was good. It was interesting. It was during a time whenever they were doing cutscenes live action. They would get, like, I guess some actors or some people in studio to play these roles. Like, they had someone playing Kyle Katarn and Jan Ors, and they would have a green screen. And they did the best they could with the cutscenes, but in the end, you know, the lines were not the best, and the acting wasn't exactly top-notch. But the games themselves were fun. And then, of course, Star Wars The Force Unleashed with Sam Witwer, who played Starkiller, as well as Emperor Palpatine. So you go from, you know, some voice acting and some acting that's not exactly the best to somebody like Sam Witwer, who's all around an awesome actor. I remember him from Battlestar Galactica as Crashdown. He's now in the 4th season of Supergirl, and he's also going to be in the new Days Gone game. He's a great actor, voice actor, obviously huge Star Wars fan. And the only thing I didn't really like about X-Wing was the fact that the voice actor that they got for Darth Vader, and yeah, they did have voice acting during the cutscenes and some voice work done in the games. He didn't exactly sound like James Earl Jones. Now, when they got the new voice actor for Vader in TIE Fighter, he sounded a lot more like James Earl Jones. So definitely felt more Darth Vader-esque in X-Wing in TIE Fighter as opposed to X-Wing. I'm just remembering this off the top of my mind. KOTOR 2 was all right. I mean, I would love a KOTOR 3, but I don't know if BioWare is ever going to be allowed to make a KOTOR 3. I know they have Old Republic, which is the MMO. Anthem not doing so well, and I made a kind of a joke, a week or so ago, that maybe, just maybe, EA should have let them make a KOTOR 3 instead. I'm just saying. And of course, all the Lego Star Wars. X-Wing versus TIE Fighter was fun, but it was back in the days of dial-up. So there was a story mode, but it was also online-based. But I think it would be a lot better if they actually brought that back. And I know that there's a different developer for Battlefront 2 that did the Starfighter mode. Maybe have them, try a fully fledged X-Wing versus TIE Fighter game. That would be awesome. And so, of course, Pod Racer back on the N64, that was freaking fantastic. I would like a new Pod Racer, skipping too far ahead. See, I'm showing it this way because at least you see the images. And of course, Outlaws. Outlaws was one of the first Western games I ever played, and it was so freaking good. In fact, last year I was planning on doing a Let's Play of Outlaws, but I could never get it to properly work with OBS. You can buy it through GOG, but for some reason it just didn't work. And then, of course, before Old Republic, you had Star Wars Galaxies. I watched a documentary about that on YouTube a week or so ago, and how it started off great, wasn't perfect, but then the whole push to try to get Jedis added to Star Wars Galaxies, in the end, I think kind of ruined the game. That was probably not the only thing that destroyed it, but it was one of the issues that led to the downfall of Star Wars Galaxies, sadly. And I mean, there's just so many games here. A lot of these games I played, a lot I avoided, like Kinetic Star Wars. No, I never touched that game. Let us not talk about that. But Empire War, people are still playing Empire War on PC. I mean, there's like tons of mods for it. And part of me, because I used to be like into RTS games, and I loved Empire War, the OG vanilla Empire War. There's part of me that's been wanting to get back into it, and try out the mods. But that's still alive and well on PC right now. And like I said, a lot of Star Wars Lego games. Episode 3. And it was one of those few like movie video games that was actually decent. And there was kind of like a twist at the end of the video game where like you first beat it as Obi-Wan, the final fight between him and Anakin. But then you could go back and replay it, the final fight as Anakin. And of course, it has a different ending, and it was kind of a cool like alternative ending. Like, what if Anakin would have won the fight on Mustafar? But yeah, so many freaking fun games. Starfighter was okay. Then there was Star Wars Bounty Hunter. I think I played that. Rogue Leader. That was, I think, a sequel. Yeah, that was Rogue Squadron 2. Shadows of the Empire. Yeah, Shadows of the Empire was good as well. That was I think it was a Nintendo game back in the day. So yeah, because you had like Dash Rendar. That was Dash Rendar. I mean, I didn't like Dash Rendar as much as Kyle Katarn. Kyle Katarn will always be my boy. And Disney, come on. One day make him canon again. I know that's kind of doubtful with Rogue One. But anyways, we can all hope and dream. And Rebel Assault 2. God, Rebel Assault 2 was so weird and ambitious because it was kind of live action. And it was kind of like a point and clicking. It was fun. But a lot of it was a very railed game. It was still interesting though, and the protagonist, what was he called? Rebel 1. That was literally the name of the protagonist for Star Wars Rebel Assault and Rebel Assault 2, Rebel 1. But Rebel Assault 2 was ambitious, and I think it involved the Phantom TIE Fighters, and I don't know if the Phantom TIE Fighters are canon now, but they had the ability to cloak and disappear and then appear. And then, of course, finally, the Super Star Wars games from back in the day. I loved the Super Star Wars games. They were hard as hell, though. Anyways, sorry about that trip down memory lane regarding LucasArts. I apologize. For fellow LucasArts fans, hopefully you went on that little trip with me a long time ago in a publisher far, far away. But this does sound promising, even though Disney appears to be taking over almost all forms of entertainment. Maybe, just maybe, they're going to correct an oopsie that they made. Because when they closed down LucasArts and they shut down 1313, a lot of us were looking forward to 1313. I liked the fact that it was different. You weren't going to play as a Jedi. You were going to play as a bounty hunter. You were going to see a different aspect of Star Wars. And I think that's something a lot of us have been wanting. Even though I do love playing as a Jedi, and Jedi Academy is still a lot of fun. I mean, even though graphically at parts you can see how dated it is, it's still a very fun game, gameplay-wise. The story could have been better, but gameplay was fantastic. But there's definitely a lot of world and lore and history to explore in Star Wars. And I know the creators behind the Game of Thrones series is rumored to be working on Star Wars trilogy that's going to predate the prequels, the original trilogy, and the sequel trilogy. Some of us are hoping for Old Republic. Maybe some Darth Revan on Bastila? Maybe. Maybe not. I don't know, but we can all hope and dream. But anyways, exciting times we live in. The return of Lucasfilm Games, formerly known as LucasArts. What does this mean for Star Wars gaming fans? Is Disney going to actually put some money behind this, especially with how disappointing EA has been with the Star Wars license, and start bringing us some, games that we've been craving and wanting and hoping for, like a new TIE Fighter or a new X-Wing versus TIE Fighter, a new Rogue Squadron, a new Empire at War maybe, as well as a new Rogue Squadron. Of course, you could kind of sort of tie in Rogue Squadron to X-Wing versus TIE Fighter because it's in Starfighters, so you could tie all that together if you wanted to. But, oh man, this is so exciting. I mean, I really do hope that maybe they might even reboot Dark Forces, because Dark Forces was a lot of fun as well. That was the first game in, like I said, the Dark Forces Jedi Knight franchise. And with the popularity of Doom as well as Wolfenstein, it does make sense that you bring back a first-person shooter set in Star Wars, like Dark Forces and later on Republic Commando, which once again I'm planning on streaming eventually on the channel leading up to the release of Jedi Fallen Order, hopefully this fall. But anyways, feel free and let me know what your thoughts are regarding Disney reviving Lucasfilm Games, as well as what old school LucasArts, Lucasfilm Games IPs, doesn't have to be Star Wars, that you would like to see resurrected, rebooted, remastered, brought back to life. Feel free and let us know below in the comment section.